First times that the player makes the coach look bad for what he's wearing. That's the Rawle's credit. But you know, today obviously it's easy to feel good about sitting here, and I think everybody knows. You know, Rawle obviously announced that he's returning to school. But I would tell you this: that if today he made the decision to not return to school and to stay in the NBA draft, I would feel equally good for him. Wouldn't feel equally good for us as a team or a program, but I would feel equally good for him because, you know, oftentimes when the season ends and this process begins with a player, a college player, you know, how it's going to end up as a result of the process that they choose, that their family chooses, you know, how well they communicate with myself, with our coaching staff, how well and how serious they take the responsibility of their academics at Arizona to finish and continue to move towards their degree and leave here eligible. You learn a lot about them, you learn a lot about their families, and in Rawle's case, all the way through, we had great communication. It started right after our last game in the NCAA tournament, and it didn't end until really the last day or two. So we stayed in contact, I think in a healthy way, because when these guys are out there, I also think they need their space. But, you know, I feel really, really good about him returning for the obvious reasons. But from my perspective, I also wanted to share just really how proud of him I am. And not only that, but just how thankful, you know, I think we are as a basketball program to have a family, you know, him and his mom, you know, how they went through this process is how I think we all would hope that it works. And, you know, everybody's different. And that just because that the student athlete doesn't do what Rawle did doesn't mean they're bad kids. But this process went, I think, as smooth as any that I've been in. And I'll use this as an example moving forward of how to go about it. And that's regardless of the outcome. So with that, you know, I'll turn it over to Rawle, you know, to be able to talk for himself and answer any questions that you may have for him.
What's up, guys?
What was that?
It was a great experience, you know, having the opportunity to get the feedback from the actual teams. And, you know, it's great. I want to thank Coach Miller. I want to thank U of A for having me to have the opportunity to leave both doors open rather than just being fully one way or fully out or the other way. Individually,
yeah,
I think that I learned that, you know, I can compete with the best, and I feel like it's a great opportunity to showcase your abilities in front of GMs and head coaches, and you know, it was a great experience.
what was it like going back home and working out for the Brooklyn Nets?
It was great, you know, Coach. Being from Brooklyn and playing with the Brooklyn Nets, having the opportunity to try out with them and seeing their facility was a great experience. You know, I actually saw Rondé Jefferson. Rondé was there, and I was out there. So, you know, it was great to see the alumni of U of A, and I think that, you know, that workout was fun.
What actually tipped
You know, just my trust in Coach Miller, trust in U of A, and I think that this time around, next time I make that jump, I think that I'll be in a better position.
Well, a lot of people think that your return puts Arizona in the top, you know, 3 or 4, 5 teams in the country. What's different about going into next year compared to yourself going into last year?
You know, Coach Miller spoke on it a lot with the experience. It's crazy to think that just a year ago it was my first college game, and you know, I was nervous as ever. I was scared. This time around, I think the first game I'll be confident, I'll be ready, and I'll just have faith that my team knows that we all have experience and we have depth. We have a great recruiting class, and we have great leaders coming back next year. And I think that our team is going to be special. That's things that the teams love about me. I think that they love the fact that I'm a versatile player. In fact, that they tell me, that's what they tell me. They tell me that I'm one of these hybrid kids that once I get a consistent jump shot, and I'll be virtually unstoppable. But that's what the teams tell me, and I think that I'm using that as motivation for this year, and I'll continue to be in the gym every night until the first game of the season, and I'll just shoot 1,000 shots a day.
So the jumper was obviously a concern for them.
That's partly concern.
Was there,
You know,
what looked like?
generally speaking, and really college basketball is, you know, it's changed. It's you know, it's not exclusive to Raleigh that they call him versatile or positionless. You know, if you look at the game's best, they all can play with an unlimited amount of combination of players, and you know that's not only offensively but it's defensively. And, you know, I think that as Raleigh, just like our other players in our program, but you know, this is Raleigh's day today. And if we're talking about him, that you know, with his continued development, like getting physically stronger and you know, body fat getting it as low as he's ever had, being in the best shape of his life, I think that's something that he probably learned going through this process, that how they'll nitpick you as a young player deciding to leave college and go to the NBA about, well, why is your body fat at a certain level, you know? And from a jump shot perspective, you know, Raleigh has made tremendous improvement in that area already. If you would have judged him as a shooter at this time a year ago, and now you look at where he is today, he made a lot of improvement, and that's to his credit because he loves the game and he lives in the gym. So I think with another 4 or 5 months here before we even get started on those two things, you know, when you talk about, we don't necessarily have to find him a position. I think it's just more about him developing so that, you know, a year from now, that he's a better overall player, a more prepared player than he is right now. And that's really what college basketball is all about, you know, going from 18 to 19, 19 to 20. You know, Raleigh and I talked, if you looked at his high school career as a 9th and 10th grader at Christ the King, you know, he was a really good young player. But if you compared him in his last year at Christ the King to his first year, it's night and day. And a lot of times, and you guys know this, just watching some of our best players that have played in our program leave their freshman year and return as a sophomore, it's night and day difference. And I think a lot of that will happen for him because he has a healthy chip on his shoulder. And I think that the next 4 or 5 months will represent a lot of hard work and great opportunity for him to improve.
I mean, every feedback, all the feedback that I've received, I look at it as a positive, and being that it's just going to motivate me to have a better year this year. And I just think that everything that the teams were telling me, it was great.
Was there anything like, you know, anything specific about your game that they liked and said, hey, you can tweak that a little bit better? Well, you know.
I mean, just the versatility, like that was versatile.
Well, you were also, what was the thought process? I didn't know why.
Around that time, you know, I already spoke with Coach. I was telling him that, you know, I'm thinking about coming back. And around that time, I was in New York City. So, you know, me being in New York, talking to my coach, was either I just have that mindset that I'm all in, or I'm having that mindset that I'm all out, you know. So I ended up making that decision, and then, you know, me and Coach Miller, we had our cheers and stuff. We were happy, and then you know, and then I'm in Arizona now. I'm working out, starting to train.
And I think the other part, just to understand about the process, you know, it goes two ways. You know, eventually, especially when the combine ends, for a player to continue to go into those workouts, you know, the NBA team wants him to be more about staying in the draft than coming back to college. So I think that, you know, Raleigh, to his credit, you know, he's not coming back to U of A halfway. He's not going to enter or go into a workout for an NBA team, you know, with 1 foot in. That's not fair to him. That's not fair to the Utah Jazz or any team that would bring him in. So I think the ones that he worked out for, he had a clear mindset of really being at his best. So again, I think that speaks volumes for him and his family, that, you know, the process even at that point in my mind was done right, because if he would have stayed with that workout, you know, he'd probably gone through that workout maybe not completely 100%. And
That's another thing I would like to say is, you know, thank you to all the NBA teams that reached out to me. I want to say thank you to all the teams that gave me the opportunity to work out with them, or the teams that I could have worked out with if I stayed in the draft. But, you know, it's a great experience getting that feedback and having the opportunity to develop relationships with the team.
there's times that the player makes the coach look bad for what he's wearing. That's to Raleigh's credit. But you know, today obviously it's easy to feel good about sitting here, and I think everybody knows, you know, Raleigh obviously announced that he's returning to school. But I would tell you this, that if today he made the decision to not return to school and to stay in the NBA draft, I would feel equally good for him. Wouldn't feel equally good for us as a team or a program, but I would feel equally good for him because, you know, oftentimes when the season ends and this process begins with a player, a college player, you know, how it's going to end up as a result of the process that they choose, that their family chooses, you know, how well they communicate with myself, with our coaching staff, how well and how serious they take the responsibility of their academics at Arizona to finish and continue to move towards their degree and leave here eligible. You learn a lot about them, you learn a lot about their families, and in Raleigh's case, all the way through, we had great communication. It started right after our last game in the NCAA tournament, and it didn't end until really the last day or two. So we stayed in contact, I think in a healthy way, because when these guys are out there, I also think they need their space. But, you know, I feel really, really good about him returning for the obvious reasons, but from my perspective, I also wanted to share just really how proud of him I am, and not only that, but just how thankful, you know, I think we are as a basketball program to have a family, you know, him and his mom, you know, how they went through this process is how I think we all would hope that it works. And, you know, everybody's different, and that just because that the student athlete doesn't do what Raleigh did doesn't mean they're bad kids. But this process went, I think, as smooth as any that I've been in, and I'll use this as an example moving forward of how to go about it, and that's regardless of the outcome. So without
2017-18 roster, or?
Yeah, I hope so. If not, I mean, I think we really have to take a look even further at what's going on. But yeah, I mean, we're sitting at 13 guys on scholarship. You know, I credit our coaching staff. I mean, it's been a tireless, exhausting effort really from the time that we've finished playing in this year's NCAA tournament until this moment here. It really wasn't until today that our roster was complete. So if you do the math on that, I guess what is it, about 7 or 8 weeks since then? And you know, that period of time has really become maybe the most important period of time in a college basketball season. From the time your season ends until, you know, mid-May, there's a lot going on, some of which you don't have total control over. But that's why I started today with what I did, and that is, you know, when I look at somebody like Raleigh, he did a great job in this process. Credit to his family as well, that they had a trust in Arizona, and if today meant he was going to stay in, I have the peace of mind that he really took the process for what it was, listened to the right people, and made the best decision for himself. And he made this decision. You know, I didn't make it, and I don't think that his mom made it. Raleigh was able to make it, but he was able to make it because he went about it the right way.
Can you? The fact that you've gone through this.
I think my coach at the combine was a U of A alum from the Brooklyn Nets, and I spoke to him a little bit. I got that when I trained with the Brooklyn Nets. I got to have nice conversations with him, but you know, they didn't really tell me anything in specific. They just told me to trust my heart, go with my gut, and you know, they think that I would be in a good position no matter what decision I chose. But at the same time, you know, I'm just happy to be here.
Riley, how much time have you been able to actually reflect on last season since you've been so busy with combine stuff?
After we lost to Xavier, you know, it took me, Coach will tell you, it took me about 2 weeks to get over it. You know, he was trying to get meetings, deciding what I was going to do. And I'll just say, just give me a week, just give me a couple of days. You know, we finally met, and then, you know, we expressed each other. You know, Coach actually told me I have 3 options. He said, you know, I can either be all in, I can be all out, or I can go with the test the waters process. And you know, I still didn't give him an answer that same day. Waited a couple more days, and then you know, I told him that I was going to test the waters. And you know, Coach Miller, he supported me 100%. He was with me through the end. You know, he even sent me a text after the first game. You know, he said, "Great game." So you know, I appreciate that, and that's one thing that I loved in the fact that the staff, we have a new coach in Coach Romar. And he's special with when it comes to offense, when it comes to defense. He has a lot going with him, and I think that we upgraded that on every level.